Welcome to the Ops Experts Club with Aaron, Terryn, and Savannah. This podcast will take you behind the scenes of some of the finer details of multi-million-dollar companies. These ops experts have dealt with operations for scaling companies and well-established businesses with anywhere from small to large teams. If you've ever been deep into the details of a major company, then you know how much it takes, and these conversations are just for you. Welcome to the Ops Experts Club podcast.
So I'm doing annual planning today with a new client. They just walked out of the room. And I love them. They're beautiful people, but I'm like, hey, listen, we got to take lunch at 12 o'clock straight up because I got to get on with Jess because she is like one of my favorites ever. So Jess, thanks so much for hanging out with us today for Ops Experts.
Yeah, of course. This is going to be fun.
And then what I'm hoping doesn't happen on this call is I'm hoping that Jess doesn't try and poach Terryn on this call. Cause I feel like this is kind of a notorious, your employer, Jess, and I'm going to let you tell everybody about who your employer is kind of known for whining and dining Terryn, taking him on exotic yacht tours, and then on that kind of leaning into, hey, I know you enjoy working with Aaron, but wouldn't it be so much greater to work with me and Jess? So I'm hoping that doesn't happen on this call.
We've already had those discussions before you joined.
That was before the recording stopped, right? Terryn's like, hey, when Aaron comes on, I'm going to pretend to be fumbling for the recording button.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Ops Experts Club. Jess, you're so loved by everybody on this team and so well respected by everybody that's here. I just want you to know we're so grateful that you joined us for Ops Experts Club. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah. So obviously, you know me and Terryn. This is a pretty casual setting, just hanging out. But I would love for you to tell the crowd kind of what your position is, who you do it for, and then we could have some conversation after that.
Yeah. So I'm Chief Operating Officer of Eternal Ventures, which actually is the operating management company for numerous subsidiaries, Advance Your Reach, 10X Stages, for consulting, for marketing, to be told. So really the brainchild and passion companies of Pete Vargas.
That's one of the most incredible things to me about you is you say all those things so casually. I'm the COO. And then you just listed off like 7 or 8 entities that are all like just money makers that are doing amazing like entities in business. But that's not where you started, right? Can you tell the crowd a little bit about where you started? Because I think a lot of people that we bring into the show, a lot of people that are part of Ops Experts suffer with like identity crisis sometimes on imposter syndrome of, do I have what it takes? Should I be in this position? I'm not qualified for this. I've never done this before, but Jess, I think you're and I don't mind giving a lot of compliments to you in this. You're one of the people I would say is excelling at a role better than most people that I know in your position. And you're so good at you're just so damn good at what you do on leading with authority, having great input, being able to push back on your visionary, because that's something that everybody in all of our roles have to do sometimes of, hey, Pete, you've got great, amazing vision. Like Pete Vargas is an incredible mover and shaker, but there are some limits to what you can even realistically do. You do it with so much grace and ability that people would probably just think, oh, Jess has been doing this all of her life. Jess has been doing this a long time. Pete probably headhunted her. He probably stole her away from somebody that was even bigger than him to help him grow. I think it'd be great for people who struggle with imposter syndrome to hear kind of your origin story and how you started, because it's so inspiring.
Sure. How far back in the archives do you want me to go into that?
I think, where did Pete find you? I think this is one of the best stories. Where did he find you? What did he hire you to do? And then how did you ascend to where you're at? Because that's an incredible climb and an incredible story in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had to reinvent myself at a certain point in my life. Prior to this industry, before I was in this, I was in the oil and gas and renewable industry. I was a landman, what's known as a landman. So I would go out and research surface ownership, mineral ownership, provide reporting to my different clients for that purpose. And it required me to travel all the time. So I was gone Monday through Friday, maybe home on the weekends. Sometimes I'd be gone 2 or 3 weeks at a time and then home, which was fine when I was a newlywed, right?
Right.
And it was just my husband and me. But when we decided to start a family, I couldn't be on the road like that and also be a mom. So I was able to manage it by growing teams for different wind development sites in 5 different states and numerous projects that we created. But then things shifted in the renewable industry. I just couldn't travel as much. We didn't have the team in place anymore. And I needed to recreate myself. I had to figure out, how can I still contribute to my family financially, but not have to travel? And we live in a very rural area. So I am on the eastern plains of Colorado. I'm 4 miles from the Kansas line, and I'm on 460 acres.
You're in the sticks.
Our nearest neighbor is a mile away. I often have cows in my front yard. So like, it wasn't as simple as let's just go get a job at the bank or let's go get a job at this title company. And so I actually started doing odd jobs on Upwork to build up my profile. And I actually had my profile paused because there was an oil and gas client in this area in Northwest Kansas that had hired me to work on about a 6-month long project.
Right.
I was paused. So as far as I knew, nobody could see me on Upwork. And I got a call out of the blue from some guy named Pete Vargas, who was in Colorado Springs. And he saw my profile. He was looking for someone in Colorado to help him part-time contract basis. Would I meet him in person? Well, at Upwork, everything's done through the
That's right.
app, right? And so here's this stranger calling me out of the blue and wants to meet me in person. And I was pretty short with him on the phone because I thought this is a scam. Like, this is some creeper, right? And I just was having none of it. And meanwhile, I'm Googling him in the background. And I'm like, anybody could throw up a web page,
Sure.
a short amount of time. Who is this, And so I said I'd get back to him. And we finally got back in touch a couple of weeks later. And I agreed to meet him, but out of Panera Bread. I was like, this will be in a public place. So that's how we met. That's how we kind of connected. He was a real life person. I didn't find anything on background checks I did on him as far as like, should I be worried about this creeper?
Pedro Vargas, right?
I did all the research. And he ended up hiring me part-time to help with a live event he had going on. He wanted me to basically do some customer support.
Right.
People messaging in about the event. This was Reach Live 2017. It was our April or May event. And he also wanted me to do the reach out to confirm so that we could have a good show up. And so I was putting in maybe 10 or 15 hours a week on a contract basis just to see how it went. And that was a point in his business where it started to scale pretty quick. And so as it was scaling, he was asking me, like, can you do a little bit more? Can you take on a little bit more? That summer, his operations or office manager, her husband moved. So she resigned. And he's like, hey, can you take on a bigger role? Can we make you, I can't remember if it was like happiness officer, or, I don't know, director of customer happiness. It was some cute little name. I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. At this point, kids were in daycare, preschool. Like, we were kind of figuring out the family side. I could put in more time and just kind of blossomed from there.
So, let's just take in a minute for everything that Jess just laid down. Like, how in the world does something like that happen? Like, Jess, obviously, anybody that knows you, like, that hears your story is like, they can't believe that. They're like, wait a minute. She was in renewable energy. And then number 2, she was on Upwork. And number 3, he hired her for a part-time customer experience role like that. And now she's Jess Andrews of like all these entities, COO, overseeing the whole entire thing. And in Pete's classic way of just gently nudging you up, right? Gently, hey, could you take on this? Hey, could you try this? Hey, this isn't going to be that big of a deal. It's not going to be that much more. If you could just do this too, and just culturing you up. I think that so impressive just to see like how far you've come, and should really put to bed anybody's nervousness about, I need to be doing this for years and years before I can be doing this. Because what is so amazing is Jess Andrews is so amazing, but whatever role you put her in wherever you want to go. Call it whatever you want, happiness coordinator, whatever you want to call that, because the bottom line is this lady's going to be running the show given it a couple more years. So sure, call it whatever you want, bring me in. And I think that should encourage anybody that's watching to think through, hey, you don't have to have all the answers. It's, do you have inside you what it takes to become what it is you're aspiring to become? But Jess, I think it's just so inspiring to hear how you started and then how it's developed, because even when I twisted into that, Pete had lost a bunch of team and was trying to grow team, and he brought in the Collab team to kind of offset some of that. And I think it was just you and me on the field there for a stretch of time as we started hiring on the Rachels and the Jeds and the different people to take these different spots, the Daniels, being in there for sales and marketing and customer experience. And each one of those hires, though, I think too, began to elevate you up as well, as we brought in these different players that kind of held the space and began to elevate you up. So I think all of that is just an inspiring story.
Yeah. And I would also say to that, Aaron, struggling with imposter syndrome, I don't know if that ever goes away. There may be
Right.
some people that it does for, but I mean, that still comes up for me
Yeah.
all the time. I would say it probably hasn't been until the last 6 months that I've really been able to address it in a healthy way, in a powerful way that actually will bring out a better leader in me. And I think the key for me in that process has been, and this was something that I work with an executive leadership coach.
Yeah.
And as I was struggling through this with him, he introduced this concept of you're a general contractor. Your client, the homeowner, is Pete.
Yep.
He wants this house built.
Mhm.
You're not the plumber. You're not the electrician. You're not the
That's right.
doctor. You don't lay the tile. You don't have to know how to do all those things. You don't have to know all the electrical code. You don't have to know plumbing code. You don't have to know all the latest tools of the trade, but you need to know enough that you know the plumbing and electrical goes in before the drywall.
That's right.
Inspections have to happen. And so you know enough at a high level that you can direct and you can lead and you can bring that house together, but you aren't necessarily the one that's executing at the level of detail that's needed from the experts you're hiring to do that. And that was such a shift for me mentally, emotionally, because I was taking all of that on.
That's
I
right.
was
Carrying the
taking-
load, right?
I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
carrying the pressure. I had to figure out how to do all the things, how to save the day.
Yeah.
And I was also carrying this, like, how can I possibly lead that director of marketing? Because I don't know as much as they do. So who
Right.
am I to tell them what to do or how to do it? And
Mhm.
it wasn't about telling them what to do or how to do it. It was holding them accountable to their performance and their outcomes, regardless of how they do it. If
Yeah.
you tell me you're going to get 1,000 opt-ins, I don't care how you do it. Like, go stand on the street with a billboard, right? Like,
Right.
but hit your 1,000 opt-ins. And
I was
so
just, yeah.
that was the
Oh,
paradigm
yep.
shift for me.
No, that's so good. So, I mean, most of you that are in Ops Experts Club, you know this, but Terryn leans into the side of automations and tech and all things in that world. Savannah leans into the side of customer experience, Zendesk, that whole platform, like ticketing platforms and how you're managing your workflows from a customer perspective. But for both of you guys, I think, how many times have we been in that exact position of, I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to be doing right now, but I think I do. And so I'm going to try this out and see where it goes and realize that there's probably nobody else on the field that knows as much as I know. So I'm the most qualified to step into it, even if I don't feel like I have that answer. What do you think about that, T?
Mhm. Yeah, sometimes you are kind of utilizing other experience to fill in the blanks and just getting you through it. So doing the best you can for sure. We don't know everything, but at the same time, if I say I'm going to get something or find something or figure something out, we'll do it.
Yeah. Savannah, you too, right? Like, I feel like you've been jumping in a lot of different spaces lately with different clients where you're like, Zendesk has always been kind of our go-to, like, for a platform to do stuff like this. But there have been different scenarios where you're like, I'm not sure it's going to be the best one for this person. And I don't necessarily know that I know all the right platforms to suggest, but but you know what goes into the platform they're going to need. So nobody's going to be better suited than to go out and do some research on it and come back with some suggestions and say, hey, we haven't rolled this out before. This looks like it has something that speaks a little bit more of the language that what you're looking for at the price point you need it to be, and just kind of stepping into that role.
Yeah, I love the house analogy. Like, I'm just like thinking that over. I'm like, perfect. But yeah, like, I think that's been something that's been really freeing for me, and something that I love is recognizing that I know the basic structure that something needs to have, so I can do research and kind of like build the skeleton, and then you have other people or resources that you can use to fill in those, give the flesh to the skeleton. Like I know how to build the overall. Here's what I have. This is what we still need, and just having enough experience to know what it's supposed to look like. From there,
Yeah.
you can fill in the other pieces.
Absolutely. Jess is like one of the sweetest ladies you'll ever meet in your entire life, but you do not want to get on the wrong side of the horns with Jess. You know what I'm saying? Like, because she does so good at like just drilling down, and she's not going to let up on this. It's not like some people just don't hold accountability well, or they let go of accountability when it starts getting uncomfortable, or they're like, I don't know, this person should know, or we've had this conversation. Jess is one of those ladies that's like, no. What did you say you were going to do? And did you get it done? People go off on a narrative and just like, no, I get that. But what did you say you were going to do? And did you get it done? And like, just dogs that thing down until she gets, yeah, exactly, Savannah, mom strengths up. I don't know. Like sorry, I think you might That's great. I understand all those things, but did you get it done? So maybe can you speak to that? Because I do feel like, and I say that with the most respect of like, you are so good at holding people accountable, and maybe speak to that superpower.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think part of it is actually being clear on what the outcomes are that you're looking to achieve. If you don't
Right.
have clarity, it's really hard to hold anyone accountable, yourself included, right? And so when you know that, and when everyone has agreed that that's what the outcomes are, then it's really easy just to point back to them, because then it's about performance,
Right.
not about the excuses or the what got in the way, because
Yep.
my understanding was that this is what you were dedicated to.
Yep.
You were dedicated to this result. This particular event was going to generate $1.2 million.
Right.
We're not on track for that. Okay. When did we see that we weren't going to be on track for that? What
Right.
were some of the leading indicators? Were we
Yep.
planning to have 200 people in the room and we were only going to have 150? Well, if we were going to have 150 and we knew that weeks coming into it,
Yep.
what are we doing to address what's happening in the room? Are we going to create another downsell offer? Are we going to throw in
Yep.
an additional bonus? How are we going to sweeten the deal so that we can
Yep.
actually hit our revenue outcomes with the situation that we currently have at hand?
Yep.
And when you're really clear on those outcomes, you can hold people to their performance.
Right.
If you're not, it makes the waters a little more muddy.
So good. And would you say you're also holding them accountable to throw the flag if there becomes a problem, right? Like, hey, I don't want to hear this at the end when we're doing your 555 review and we're talking about goals that you didn't meet. If we're at the end of the quarter and we missed it by too much, like, or at the end of the event, if you saw there was something that was going to compromise your ability to do what you said you were going to do, I also hold you accountable to throw the flag, right? Would you
Right.
say that that's their responsibility as well?
Right. Yeah. And that has been an area of growth within our team, because we started, like, we were a startup, we were scrappy, we had grit, and we had Pete at the helm.
Right.
Pete was the one coming up with the ideas. Pete was the one seeing ahead. And it was more like everyone else was following along and doing, right? It was more reactive. But as we've grown and as we've scaled, that's not sustainable. And so our visionary, we need him out there creating and rainmaking in a different way, partnerships, licensing, those types of things. And our
Yep.
leaders need to step up as leaders, which means that they have to have the foresight of what is my strategy to get me to that outcome. And when my strategy isn't on pace, I need to, one, come to the drawing board with multiple solutions, not just say, hey
Right.
guys, it's a problem. I don't know what to do. Well, you're a leader. We hired you to be a leader. So
Right.
we need you to go and lead. And that means present some solutions.
Yep.
And come to the drawing board so then we can put our collective brains together. And if we need to pull on Pete and lean on his genius, we can.
Yep.
I hired you to be that subject matter expert and to
So
help us
good.
that outcome.
So good, Jess. I think that Stephen Diaz does this thing, and he's just rolled it out recently with his team, who's another one of our retainer clients, 131, which is identify what's the one problem, identify 3 solutions, and then you come to us with which one you think is the best, because then it's a real easy yes or no, right? Like you
Right.
just laid out for me the problem. Nobody's gonna have better solutions than you are. You're in the middle of it. I haven't looked at that problem yet. So what are the 3 solutions you've got for me? And then you're probably going to be the one that identifies the best one of the 3. And then it's a real easy yes or no. And then the no just comes from my purview, right? I see more of the field. And so I see that if that's the solution, it's going to have pain points downstream. And so I might push back on your one solution, but at least you've done the thinking for me and the heavy lift. And that, just like you said, like we're paying you to be a leader, lean into it, lead.
Yeah, for sure. And not just our leaders. Now we're at the stage in the business where we're scaling to the point where we're starting to push that down into our front line.
Yeah.
Like if you see an issue or a trend happening with customers in the customer experience area, identify what the problem is, identify some solutions for that, and come to us
Yep.
with your recommendation, meaning your direct supervisor, which then makes it easier for them to say yes or no, or to escalate it up to the next level of leadership. And
Yep.
so as we do that throughout the organization, it just creates so much more efficiency, so much more clarity, faster responses, better
Yep.
customer experiences, just all around it's better.
I love that. I love that. Okay, Jess, the 2 questions we ask people are, what's the greatest thing you've learned, learned or taught? And then what's the biggest obstacle you face either current or in the past that you could take them in either order. Savannah or Terryn, feel free to jump in as well if you have things that she says that resonate with you, but we want to make sure we hear the goods from the queen.
Oh, from the queen. I would say, I've already addressed the biggest thing I've learned, which
Yeah.
was realizing I don't have to know all the things, but I do have to be able to lead my leaders and my team so that they can create the outcomes that we're looking for and that they can have performance. So that has been like my biggest learning. It's probably been my biggest struggle in the last year, is getting to that point. And to answer your second question, as far as some of the hurdles, I think is what you had asked about, it kind of ties in with that. So again, based on, my origin story for working with Pete, I was hired as a doer.
Right.
Or a tactician. And I've evolved into a strategist.
Right.
There's a difference there. And as I've grown as a leader and as I'm training other leaders in the organization, it's a different set of skills that are needed to go from being a doer to being that strategist or tactician. Take sales, for example. You have somebody who is an amazing closer. They're awesome. They have the highest closing rate. You're like, why isn't this guy leading everybody else? Right.
Right.
You might make them a leader in your organization, but they actually don't have the skill set to lead other people.
Right.
Just because they can close doesn't mean that they can lead.
Right.
Or if they can, they might need a lot of training and, you pouring into them, coaching to get to that point. And recognizing that there's a difference is huge. And we're seeing that in some of our up and coming leaders now, people who have been elevated into a manager position or into a director position, where they're so in the weeds of the doing still that they're not being effective as they're leading others towards their outcomes. And so I actually started a powerful leaders training group for our up and coming leaders in the business. Every 3 weeks, I meet with them for an hour and we talk through what are they dealing with. And I help coach them and train them around how they can elevate into that leadership role and get out of the doing. So
just drop the link. Drop the link because I want to sign up. I'm saying I'll sign up. I know. Just go ahead. Start.
Yeah. So I'd say that's one of our biggest hurdles. And that's been one of my biggest hurdles, even in my own growth as a leader. It's just been figuring out when it's okay to delegate or to set others up for success. And that's the other part of it. If I continue to do, I'm not giving other team members the opportunities to grow.
That's right.
And to elevate themselves within our business or within their career path. And that's not fair to them. And it's not fair to the business, really, because then we aren't building a bench of future leaders.
So good, Savannah. I feel like that word was like for you, sister, because I feel like Savannah, just so you know, Jess is such a badass on our team and she does so good at what she does. But I feel like sometimes she can over carry this load of needing to be the solution, like having to have all the solutions, having to show up with the solutions. And then she'll just kill herself trying to put in all these extra hours as a young mom, as a new mom. Like she's got all these extra things, home life, and those things can sometimes get sacrificed because she feels this like innate need to be the solution, be the solve. And so I think that's such good words. Savannah, what do you think of all that?
Yeah. I mean, I hate not knowing how to do something, and I like learning how to do things. So it's really hard to balance that with recognizing okay, I can spend the next 4 hours learning how to do the thing that the client needs done, or I can recognize what needs to be done, lay it out clearly for another member on the team who already probably has a little bit more experience in that than me, or is possibly at a lower pay level. So it costs the client less. It's better for our business because it frees up more strategist time to be strategizing other things, delegating other projects, and then rolling that down to somebody else that it makes more sense to have learned how to do that thing. But I like strategizing and I like doing the thing. So it's definitely
It's a dance. It's a dance.
It is a dance. Even with, I have an assistant and sometimes I'll rattle off 20 things I need her to do. And then an hour later, I'm like, it's just only going to take 5 minutes. I'm going to do it. And then I'm like, but I'm not setting her up for success in the future if I'm doing it, right? It seems small. It seems simple, but my time is more valuable for the business, not from oh, look at me, I'm so important, right? But what can I go create with my time for the business? It all translates into dollars, right?
Best bang for the buck, right? How are we getting the best bang for the buck out of Jess? Yeah.
Yeah. And if I'm doing those types of things, number one, she's not learning. Number two, she's not growing. And number three, I'm really taking away from the business and its overall performance and the outcomes created for it. So just all around, it's unfair to anybody.
which is the beauty of delegate and elevate, right? Which is what EOS really leans into, is how do we elevate up each one of our positions, each one of the people that are working with us, what requires their brilliance and what can be delegated down, what's something that's SOPable, what can something that they can create an SOP around and then just manage the person doing this. And it gives them an opportunity to ascend up and take in a new space and manage something new. Terryn Turner, what are your thoughts on that?
I really love going back to what Jess said about leading and the difference between doing. It's always helped me to think of, you're the doer, you know how things get done. When you're the leader, you know why things get done. And there's a big switch there. And that's why that's why your closer might not be a leader, is because once you switch to that why, it more becomes really a philosophical position to ask the questions why, whereas how is it's an actionable step. It's doing things. And, a lot of people, they can do the how and they might not be able to do the why, because it really is a big different switch in the brain of, okay, now we're asking why, and now we need to think. Now we've got all these different other things going on. We're not just typing away with our hands.
That's good. A lot of people get hired in to be doers and thinkers, and do you have a threshold on when they should be doing less doing and more thinking? Do you feel like once they get somebody underneath them, once they have maybe a couple people underneath them, do you guys have a rule of thumb that you use?
I wouldn't say we have a rule of thumb. It depends on the resources you have available to you.
Yeah.
Not everybody and not every team has every resource to have a doer. So sometimes I do wear multiple hats. Part of the role that I play as COO, which may be different than other companies, is I'm kind of our in-house legal. We have a retainer attorney. I've worked with her to create templates for professional service agreements, for licensing, for different partnerships and stuff. And so nobody else on our team has the experience or the amount of time working with our attorney to know the nuances of those agreements. So when something needs to be created, I can't delegate that to my assistant yet. Maybe in a year or two, when she has more experience working directly with me on those agreements, she'll understand some of those types of things. But right now, I'm the doer and the strategist when it comes to that, right?
Yeah.
He comes to me and says, here's the opportunity. And I say, okay, which agreement is that going to fit in? Is it a partnership? Is it a sponsorship? Is it professional services? Is it consulting? Like, which of our systems or templates am I going to use for this? And then I have to create. And if there's something really wonky, then I pull in our attorney. But yeah,
it's a great example. Assets on the field and what you have access to. It's beautiful. I love it. Jess, such a privilege. Thank you so much for giving us some time today. I know that you just listed off like 7 businesses that you run with Pete. So I know that you don't have an abundance of time. Thank you for giving us a half-hour time. The Collab team has been so blessed by being able to be in league with you and Pete and the Advance Your Reach team. So thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you guys. We love working with you. You guys are such a great resource for us. You have no idea how many times I'm like, ask Aaron, ask Terryn, when they can support with. So thank you so much for everything you guys do.
All righty, guys. Thanks so much. I hope you guys all enjoyed Ops Experts. See you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ops Experts Club podcast. New episodes available every week on Spotify, iTunes, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. If you're curious about how some of the biggest names in entrepreneurship have scaled their businesses to the next level, check out some of our best content on this topic by going to foundationsthatscale.com. You can find the link in our bio and do your part to improve as an ops expert.